My name is Kathryn Kidder. Today is August 18th, 2020. I'm with Nancy Ingram. Nancy, would you please say and spell your name for the transcriber, including your maiden name?
Nancy Giannoukas, Giannoukos, Ingram, Ingram.
Thank you so much for agreeing to record this oral history. We are here to talk about the Agricultural Women's Club, an organization at the University of Florida that was founded in 1908 and disbanded this year in 2020. But first, we'd like to hear something about your own history. Can you tell us where and when you were born?
I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, on September the 11th, 1950.
Okay, and was that in a hospital?
Yes,
or at
I
home?
was born in Roper Hospital here in the city.
What were your parents' names?
My father was James Anthony Giannoukas, and my mother was Kathryn Giannoukas.
Were they from Charleston?
They were originally from Haverhill, Massachusetts, that is right outside of Boston. And they came to Charleston in 1947 with my grandparents, who came with my grandfather's brother to run a grocery store. A lot of the Greek immigrants ran grocery stores once they got over here, and that's how they originally came down to Charleston.
Ah, interesting. And what were your grandparents' names?
Andrew Karabatsis and Virginia Karabatsis.
Would you spell that?
Carabatsos.
So your heritage is Greek. On
Yes.
both sides, or the other side of your family also Greek?
Yes. Both sets of grandparents came over from Greece. They were the ones originally coming over to America.
I didn't ask the names of the other grandparents, did I? Did you name them?
No. It would Jimmy and Helen Giannoukas.
Okay. Good. So were you involved in that store project? Is that part of your life?
Only as a little girl when I used to walk up there and hang out, but that was about it.
What memories do you have from those early years, maybe preschool years?
Preschool, what I remember the most is being in a dancing class and doing something that required a Indian costume, and I can vividly see the picture, but I don't know why that was the most vivid recollection I have.
The great melting pot.
Yeah.
The Greek and Indian combination, right? So when you went to school, was that was all of your schooling was in Charleston?
Oh, yes.
Started school there, and so
yeah.
Did you go to kindergarten?
I did, at a church-affiliated kindergarten. And then I went to elementary school, and then we moved from the city to West Ashley in South Carolina, and I went to St. Andrews Junior High and high school.
And do you have recollections of some of your early school years? elementary school?
I remember the maypole. We had a big May festival, and I remember doing the maypole and having to wear white and yellow. And, I can remember some of my teachers, and I remember my fifth grade teacher. We always used to have to sing Home, Home on the Range. So I thought that's what I remember.
Yeah, it's strange, the things that really stay in our minds, isn't it? Do you remember what your house was like when you were small?
Oh, absolutely. We lived on, my first recollection of the first house is we lived down the street from our church, which is the Greek Orthodox Church here in Charleston. And after school, I would go to Greek school every afternoon. And just like they had in my big fat Greek wedding, that was exactly how it was. And then we moved west.
Was that elementary school when you went to Greek school?
Yes.
Or later?
It's first through seventh grade.
Oh. And it was every day?
Every day.
And what were you doing there?
We just learned about heritage and language, and pretty much that was it. And reading and writing Greek. Not that I remember a whole lot of it now.
So after that, you went to a different high school and a different home. And
yes.
And that was a different town, or was that a suburb?
It was just, across the Ashley River. It was a suburb. And I remember that house because my mother kept that house for years and years after we were all adults and grown, and then we finally got her to move out of that neighborhood. But I remember the house. I remember I had a room to myself, but I had three younger brothers, and they had to share the room. So I remember having a lot of sleepovers. My mother was very accommodating. She let us have sleepovers and parties. And I just remember it with a lot of fond memories.
I know that cooking is one of your loves. Did you do a lot of cooking with your mom?
My grandmother had a love of cooking, and she couldn't read or write in English. So, and she didn't follow recipes. So I remember I'd have to stand with her and make her measure things so I could write them down. So I have a few of her recipes that I was able to save that way.
So you were actually interested in that as a child, that to want to eat those recipes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love recipes.
Was that was the kitchen a special place in the house that people congregated, or?
Well, our den and kitchen were sort of connected, and my father always insisted that we had dinner at 6:00. So we were always at the dinner table at 6:00, and then I would, help clean. My grandmother moved in with us when I was in high school, as my grandfather had passed away.
And she was the cooking grandmother?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was convenient then. Yeah. So in high school, did you have favorite subjects or academic interests or other interests?
Remember any academic interests, but I did well enough. And I'm very fortunate now. There are about 15 of us. And prior to COVID, we tried to get together once every couple of months at either someone's house or a restaurant. And it's wonderful being able to reconnect.
So those girls that you were with in high school, were you friends because just because you were all in the school, or were you in any certain kinds of activities together?
That was all. We were in the same school and just became good friends.
And in high school, did you have an idea of your future plans, any life goals, career
Well, I
goals?
knew I was going to college because my mother insisted. I guess I was at the cusp of that era that my father said, no, girls don't go to college. And she pressured and pushed and pushed. And she said she never got to go to college, and she was darn sure going to make sure I went to college. Of course, when I graduated, my father took front seat and how proud he was.
Yeah, that's great.
I knew I was going on to college, and when I was in college, I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. And then I can't remember why I changed my mind, but I did, and majored in psychology, and then went on to graduate school to get a master's of social work and spent my career in social work.
And where was that you went to college?
I went to Furman University up in Greenville, South Carolina.
And your master's degree was there as well?
Master's degree was at the University of South Carolina in Columbia, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm. And then you went on to take jobs in the social work area?
Mm-hmm. And most of my jobs were in the area of healthcare. And I sort of, that was the area that I was most interested in. And I was very fortunate to be able to find jobs in that field.
And you were in South Carolina at that time?
Yes, I was in South Carolina till I was married the first time. And we had to move to Columbia for his first year of internship. But then he changed his specialty, and we were able to come back to Charleston, to the Medical University. And I have lived in Charleston until I my late husband passed away, and I remarried Lonnie and moved to Gainesville.
Okay, so that's the connection that got you to Gainesville. And what year was that?
2005.
Okay. And then you got acquainted with the Agricultural Women's Club somehow. How was that? Do you remember?
Well, I'm trying to remember how I got connected with the University Wives Club. And I went to their open house in September, and the Agricultural Club had a booth there, and they were very protective and made sure all the agriculture women knew about that as well. And so I became a member of both clubs and thoroughly enjoyed it.
What were your expectations when you joined?
I was, previous to moving to Florida, I had always worked. And so I had never been a stay-at-home mother or wife, and trying to find ways to fill my days. And so that's one of the things I think that the University Women's Club and the Ag Women were so important for me, is I was able to make friends, very good friends, and then branch out through their friends to others, and I was able to get involved in Haven Hospice, PEO, just in a lot, and I supported and went to all of the university and Ag Women events.
Did you have children?
I do. I have a 41-year-old son and a 39-year-old daughter.
So were they with you when you came to Gainesville?
No, they were, already grown.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you were really ready for some community engagement at that at that
Yes.
time in a new place. Did you feel like there was any pressure on you to join like the Agricultural Women's Club? Because your husband, that was your husband's area, right? Agriculture.
Yeah. I didn't feel any pressure. When I went to the open house and met them, I knew I would feel comfortable there, and was look forward to becoming a member.
At the time, who were the other members? Who was eligible to be a member of the club?
It was wives of the faculty and female faculty. It's what I remember.
Mm-hmm. So it gave you some connections with the university as well as those individuals, I assume.
Right.
And what was your role in the Agricultural Women's Club?
I'm trying to remember if I was always on the board, and I don't remember if I
Immediately. Sounds like you were ready to plunge in.
Yeah, that part I don't remember, and I don't remember if I held any officer positions. But I do remember always being very involved with every event and working hard at it, and enjoyed every minute.
What were those kinds of events that you were putting together?
We had a scholarship dinner event, and we had a Christmas event with our husbands, and gosh, I didn't realize my memory was so poor. I'm sure there were many others. Hopefully everybody else got them.
What was the, for example, the Christmas dinner, where was that held?
Christmas dinner was always held at the University Wives Clubhouse. And it was always catered, and it was the catering company. What I do remember the servers, because we used them for the University Women's and Ag Women. And there was one gentleman there. He over the years he realized I liked the peanut butter pie, so he always held a piece for me in the back and making sure I got a piece of the peanut butter pie.
That was one of the perks of being an organizer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the scholarship dinner, what was that about?
We came with our husbands and brought in the scholarship winners and introduced them and awarded them their scholarships.
Tell me more about the scholarship activity. Were you ever a part of that selection committee or otherwise involved?
No, I wasn't. I was more involved in the events and raising the money. I'm more of an organizer in that sense than a educator.
But the scholarships were awarded at this dinner.
Yes, to my recollection.
Attended by husbands. Did husbands attend? The meetings were also included husbands?
No, not that I remember. We had joint events for husbands. So I should have reviewed my direct brief.
So then at the scholarship, so the university students, were they, I think they were just women at the time, right? They were women in agriculture, women
Yes,
students. Mhm.
yes, I think the selection committee got the applications that were submitted through IFAS, and which was the Institute of Food and what was it? I already can't believe I've forgotten that. My brain.
Agricultural science.
Yeah, yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So what other events, and you said fundraisers, so the club had to, how did the club get the money to award scholarships?
We would collect donations, and any money that was raised or left over from the dinners. Um, and that's what I remember. I've had some life-changing events, and my brain has not recuperated to remember very much.
So the donations were from the club members or other
Right.
outside people?
Club members.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's impressive because all the scholarships that were given were monies donated by the actual members.
Correct. And there were certain special scholarships that several husbands had set up in honor of their wives. They were specifically named, and they would also donate to those scholarships.
Oh, do you remember who those husbands, any of those husbands?
I remember it was E.T. York, and I can visualize the other husband, but I cannot remember his name. But he came, even after his wife passed, he would come to all our evening events and seemed to enjoy himself.
That might have been Al Warnick.
Yes, that's who it is.
Yeah, charming man. Yes, that was very nice that they did that as a tribute, and we named those scholarships in honor of their wives. So, it sounds like you enjoyed the organizing and the planning. Was that your favorite thing about the club?
Well, I guess it was my favorite thing because it brought me into interactions with other members. And by interacting with other members, it just extends the friendships and knowledge of them. I remember in the latter part of the organization, the board was about what existed. I think there were about 8 of us, and I remember meeting at breakfast, and it was it's very enjoyable to see them.
Was there ever any conflict between your time spent with club work and your home life?
Oh, absolutely not. Mm-mm. Neil was thrilled when he brought me to Gainesville. He was so worried that I wasn't going to be able to fill my time. So when the more club work I did, the more thrilled he became.
That's a great arrangement, isn't it?
Yeah.
So can you think of other events that you particularly enjoyed, other times that were spent with club members?
I can remember club members, and for the life of me, I'm drawing a blank on specific events. I know we had one out. It used to be the university had a place out of Wando Road, I think, further down Wando Road. It was a little rustic, and I remember that particular meeting. Well, it was a social event with the husbands.
And what did you do there in the rustic surroundings?
We mingled and spoke with others and enjoyed the food.
I think that was the Austin Cary Forest, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah, where the forestry department had activities.
Yeah. So I think it had been used prior to my becoming a member, but I think that was the only time since I was involved that we had an event there.
So the events were usually food events, I guess. So was there food involved at the
Oh, of course.
or at the forest? Yeah.
Yes. And you know, food makes the world go round.
Did you prepare food?
It seems like Seems like we might have brought desserts at some of the events. So if we did, I'm sure I did.
Most likely. Did you feel like the club had some any impact in the community or the university community outside the personal friendships?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I think the Agricultural Women's Club had a major impact on the University Women's Club because I think we had a lot of members who joined both organizations and were also the worker bees. So I think the Ag Women contingency was very active in the University Women's Club as well. So, there were events where both clubs were together.
Were you involved in the 100th anniversary celebration of the club?
I was on the committee, and I was not able to attend because my father had passed away either the week of or several weeks, and I had to come back to Charleston and be with my mother for about a month. So I had to miss it. But I remember being involved in the planning.
Do you remember what you were planning? What the event was to be like?
It was a sort of a cocktail, heavy hors d'oeuvre cocktail, if I remember correctly. As you can see, my brain is kind of slowing down.
I think the University Women's Club also had an anniversary celebration at one point, right? You probably were involved with that as well, or maybe you weren't here then.
I don't remember doing anything with the University Women's Club as far as a centennial or event of any kind.
Well, they haven't reached it yet. They're younger. Yeah, they will reach it soon. So you mentioned that you became involved in other events in Gainesville because of the Agricultural Women's Club. You want to talk a little about what you did in those areas?
I became good friends with Mary Martzoff, who was a longtime member, and she pulled me into hospice. The volunteers, the Hospice Alliance volunteers, helped run the Hospice Attic, which was like a secondhand place. And then within a few years, she pulled me into being president. And then I ended up being president for, I think, 3 years. But I remember that was another club that I worked with.
That was a major project because the Hospice Attic is a big uh, outfit, and it must have been a lot of volunteers involved in
There
it.
were over I think 100 volunteers, and I worked real hard in those years. So when I relinquished the presidency, I kind of went on sabbatical.
What was your role in the hospice? Well, that was it. That was the hospice attic.
Yeah.
But then I meant to say the PEO. What is it? What does that stand for?
It's a philanthropic educational organization, and its primary purpose is raising funds for scholarship for women. And I was asked to become a member by one of our past presidents of the University Women's Club, Gwen Mann. And we met twice a month, and it really functioned as a sisterhood, and I became very close with that group as well. And met even more wonderful women who live in Gainesville.
I think did you mention another organization as well? Although I can't imagine you had time for another one.
The other one was I became state treasurer for the Society for Social Work and Healthcare. And so I was the state treasurer for that, and we had annual meetings.
So you kept up your professional interest through that period.
Yes, and we had national meetings as well that I really enjoyed and really helped me continue progression in my career. It was only into a couple of years ago that I had to give up my membership, because in order to maintain your license, you had to have 40 hours of educational hours every 2 years, and I found that I could not keep up with that. And for a long time, my husband and sister-in-law, she goes, "Why do you do that? Why do you want, you're not working or anything?" I said, "Because I see social work as a part of who I am, and didn't want to give it up, and wouldn't have if I didn't have to go to so many continuing ed conferences." So
It's interesting that you chose social work. I didn't follow up on that earlier, but I don't think that was a very known major for kids coming out of high school, was it?
No, I got pushed, and no, it was recommended that I take that direction, because my advisor said with a bachelor's in psychology, it wasn't going to advance me very much. You really had to go on for a master's and a doctorate, which I did not want to do. And he said that I should consider social work, because after a 2-year master program, I'd be able to work in my career. And it was wonderful. Like I tell many people, I was very fortunate. There weren't many days that I got up and dreaded going to work. So I was very fortunate with that.
And how did the healthcare part of it, how did that direction come in for you?
Well, in my summers, in between my college years, I worked in the clinics at the medical university, and that's probably where I originally thought about physical therapy. And I enjoyed that. And then when I went to graduate school, the first year, my internship was with the VA hospital in Charleston. And then my second year was with the Department of Psychiatry at the medical university. So it's kind of leaning in that direction. And I've just always liked healthcare and being involved.
So did you work in different areas of healthcare or?
I did. I worked my initial jobs out of college or graduate school were I worked on the inpatient unit, pediatric inpatient unit for a few years. And then I had to move to Columbia for that 1 year. My late husband moved there for his residency. And then when I came back, I was able to write a grant to establish a outpatient social work department. And then that led into, the one thing led to the other, but my last 12 years of working as the manager of social work for ambulatory care. So, and I had 10 social workers that I supervised. And I was able to put my program development and organizing to work, developing the department.
That's wonderful. It must have been hard for you, though, to give all that up when you started your new life in Gainesville.
It was. I was extremely fortunate that my supervisor, who was the director of nursing, allowed me to work 1 week out of the month and then 40 additional hours by computer at home. So that gave me an additional year to adjust and slowly edge out, which made it a lot more easier to do.
You were so far ahead of your time, Nancy, with the computer. Everybody's working that way now, but I don't think many people did at that time, did they?
Well, in the medical center, we had computers for when I went back in 1991 and stayed there till 2005, and computers were already in there pretty strong.
Well, so here you are with activities with the Agricultural Women's Club and board activities, and anything else that you remember from those activities and friendships?
Just that I have very warm feelings and memories. In fact, I really hated to leave Gainesville. And when my husband retired, we moved to St. Augustine, and we'd come back for a couple of events, and both of us talked about how much we missed it. And he says, "Do you want to get an apartment here?" I said, "Oh, no. We'd gone from living in 3 places to living in 2 places, and I wouldn't have, I was ready to settle down in just 2 places. But I really miss everything there."
Did you see change in the club over the years that you were involved with it?
I think so. Other than the change that hit both of the clubs, I think in my era, wives became involved in their husbands' careers with clubs and anything to support that. And I think as time went on, women went to work, they had children, they became very involved with children's activities and did not have the time to participate in women's clubs. And so I think that is what's happened to the clubs just slowing down and eventually breaking up.
And how did you feel about it this year when we finally closed everything down?
Well, when we would take a vote about closing down, I always hated to say yes, but I understood why we had to do it because of lack of participation. But I hated to see the clubs go, but times change.
Do you can you reflect on what the original members of the club in the early 1900s would have thought about what happened to it over the years and how things finally ended?
Well, I'm sure they did not see it taking this road because, women in their role in society has changed so much from the 1900s to now. And there's so many things pulling on women um, that, changed the way the clubs functioned and the support they received. So, no, I don't think they would have expected it in the 1900s.
So, any other thoughts that come to you before we conclude this part?
I can't think of any other than, I do remember our Christmas. One of the fun things at our Christmas event for Ag Women is that John Weasty would get up and we would sing Christmas carols, and he was very good at interacting with the group, and it was always fun to do that. That's one memory I have. But I just enjoyed it, and I enjoyed meeting the wives, but I also enjoyed meeting my husband's colleagues. So I'm thankful it was there when I needed it.
And you were such a great participant and contributor that was certainly mutually agreeable. I'm going to change the subject because this 2020 year is so extraordinary for you in particular in many ways, but for everyone with the pandemic. How has that affected your life this year?
Well, I saw my grandchildren at Christmas in December, and the very next time I got to see them was in June, and that was an extreme hardship for me. And my granddaughter and I take a trip every summer, and that went by the wayside. And Neil, because of our age, and we stayed in, and my only getting out was going to the grocery store. So it was just staying home pretty much for us. And it wasn't until July, no, it was June as well, that Neil encouraged the kids to come and visit us. But we kept, we did the mask and the social distancing and the staying at home. And that's pretty much what we did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We still never went out to eat. We did do some takeout, but anyway.
Sounds familiar. Still, as it still goes on. So, and I'm going to skip back to a couple of things at least one thing that occurred to me. I didn't know about your Greek background, but I can imagine that all that wonderful cooking that you got to partake of early on, is that one of your interests or specialties still? Greek cooking?
Well, what I get requested a lot, I think the novelty for others, like my granddaughter's boyfriend at the time was interested in Greek cooking, and that's sort of what they request. Greek chicken and potatoes and spanakopita, and so I cook on request, which is often enough.
But what is your real love in cooking?
Oh, don't know, I just enjoy it, and I enjoy collecting recipes and experimenting with them and getting kitchen tools and getting more than I probably needed and trying to figure out where to put them all. And someone said, you need to downsize. I said, oh no, I can't get rid of my kitchen toys. I love them. So I just enjoy cooking, and
It's been a great hobby that makes other people happy as well. That seems to be a theme in your life. I think that's about all I have to inquire, but let me ask you again if anything else has come to your mind or anything else you'd like to say before we conclude.
I don't think so. I think I've, said it all.
Well, I certainly want to thank you for doing this. It's really great to have your contribution, your perspective. You came into the club at a kind of different era from a lot of the others who had been longer term members. So it's quite interesting to have your particular perspective and what it meant to you at that time. I think we have concluded. So I will now end the recording with thanks. Many thanks.